Hi everyone, this is Abhinav Narayan with Experience Imagination. We have an exciting episode today about how education for our industry's next generations is evolving, and we'll get into it in just a moment. We wanted to take a brief opportunity to say that the majority of what you're about to hear was recorded over a month ago. At the time of this recording, and at the time of this episode's slated release, our state of Florida, our country, and much of the world are all in the midst of dealing with the COVID-19 coronavirus. For the health of our team, our families, and our neighbors, our studio has been working incredibly hard over the last few weeks to migrate our operations to remote access. And we have been and will continue to be moving the ball forward on all of our endeavors, including this podcast, from home for at least the next 2 weeks. So we just wanted to take a moment to give you that heads up and say that we hope you and your loved ones can be as safe and comfortable as possible in these times. Thank you to all the people keeping things running throughout our communities in health, utilities, food, supply, everything. And thank you to all the people staying home as much as possible to help flatten the curve of the virus's spread. We wish everyone the best, and we hope to be back in the office in mid-April. So with that, let's dive into today's episode.
You're listening to Experience Imagination, a themed entertainment design podcast presented by Falcon's Creative Group. Every episode, we discuss a new topic with a panel of creative professionals. Hi, I'm Cecil Magpuri, President and Chief Creative Officer of Falcons.
Hey everyone, this is Abhinav. Welcome back to Experience Imagination. For today's episode, we have the chance to sit down with the team that is pioneering the University of Central Florida's new themed experience program for students right here in our own backyard. As part of this venture, the UCF team has put together a brain trust, an advisory council of industry leaders and veterans, including Falcon's own Cecil Magpuri, who come together and work hand in hand with the school and the students to help shape what this new track of education can really look like. Later on in the episode, we'll be joined by two industry legends and members of this council, Mike West and Bob Ward, to chat a bit about what a program like this will mean for the future of our business and for the future generations that are entering our industry. For now, though, let's jump into our discussion with the team from UCF, starting with introductions. Peter?
Peter Weishar, and I'm a professor of themed experience and the director of the graduate program in themed experience at UCF.
Kara Robertson, Senior Director for Advancement for the College of Arts and Humanities.
Hi, I'm Heather Gibson. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the College of Arts and Humanities.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start and just jump right to it and talk about the advisory board itself. When did the board come into being, and what was the story behind its inception?
We started the board actually day one, before we even had a curriculum in classes, because it was very important for us to start working with industry. But actually, just a quick thing, we call it the Advisory Council. A lot of times in academia, a board has a connotation of fundraising and fiduciary, but we really wanted to emphasize that this is a council. These are industry partners that we're working with,
right?
People whose advice we're taking, and helping to develop the curriculum in the program.
That's an important distinction. Absolutely.
So that was the first thing we reached out to leaders in the field to help us with that.
What prompted the creation of it? Kara?
Well, really, these advisory councils are all about support, external support, and advice. So the advice is really important as we're developing and growing, that we really know what's needed in the community and in the industry so that our students can be developing those skill sets. So it's been sort of an evolution, and that may change. In a few years, we may say the council will be moving to do different things. It's sort of an ongoing process.
Absolutely. Cecil?
Everyone is motivated to arm the students with a future. Everyone has a different journey to get into the entertainment industry. It's so diverse, Mine happened to be traditional architecture, but there's so many different routes. And so seeing how you sculpted this new approach of embracing all the different facets and capabilities of entertainment and showcasing that there's different facets of it, it was enlightening for me to see that. And also I felt like my personal journey, I could add value because I could reflect back on my own journey and start to think about how I could add value by communicating that with the board.
Heather?
One of the things I've really enjoyed with watching the council is the sense of community and conviviality between all of the members, and having them have the opportunity to get in the room together and talk and meet with our students occasionally and see what's happening is really interesting. And watching everyone together is, I think, an important part of it.
Kara?
And that's really the holy grail, I would say, of an advisory council, is that at the end of the day, that the relationship is as mutually beneficial for you as the board member as it is for the students, as it is for UCF and all the players involved, that at the end of the day, we come out all stronger, having worked together and having that time.
Let's talk a little bit about the value and benefit we see in introducing programs like this, because, Cecil, kind of as what you were saying, so many people have come to this industry from all different backgrounds. We're really now starting to see specific programs dedicated to officially training students to enter this particular field.
Yeah.
What does that add to the table? How does that change the nature of how we will do business?
It's one of those things, why hasn't it happened already? You think about how many billions of dollars has entertainment brought? It's surprising that you don't see it in academia as a foundation of an opportunity for students to become engaged, to find a path for that as an ecosystem.
Yeah, Peter?
It's one of the only fields I know of this scale and this much success that doesn't have a dedicated discipline, an academic discipline that feeds that thing. If you look at the analogy of like a film, and imagine there's no such thing as a film school.
Yeah.
And imagine you're
Right.
and you're a production company.
Yeah.
And you've got to hire a cinematographer, or you want to train. So you go to a school and you say, okay, let's find some photo students and some dramatic writing students, maybe some choreographers, and we'll run a special class with them with our best choreographer. And at the end, we'll see if some of them might shake out. And if they do, we'll let them intern for a year or two with us so they can learn what the film industry is and hope they like it. And that would be ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But, today you go to a film school, you want a cinematographer, they show you their best 20, 30 cinematographers. They show you a reel. All these people have studied film. They understand the industry.
There's a focused level of communication in order to cross that threshold into the industry that is critical for a lot of students. Heather?
I think the time is right for this generation as well. In the past, we all thought so much about disciplines in silos, and students came in and they said, I want to study English, or I want to major in theater.
It's been very niche.
And now students who are coming in want to do everything. They have tried everything when they were in high school. They loved it all, and their little creative brains are exploding with ideas, and they want to speak many different languages and have their hands in many disciplines.
That's
so
a very good point.
for us to have an answer and a solution for them where they can then take this, it's a creative outlet for them. The time is right.
If you think about our industry, it's all about being Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's multiple talents that allow you to really be effective and billable. To be so departmentalized in our current world, it's too limiting. You have to have multiple skills in order to be effective. And so it's perfect. We embrace that here at Falcons. I mean, that's a big deal for us. We promote diversity in your own skill set. You may even have a degree or a focus on a specific category, but recognize that you may have a love for music or other components. We're open to seeing how we can mature that as well, because it's such an important collective, because we do almost every aspect of storytelling. Music, writing, drawing, it's all those facets, and that's our world.
Absolutely. Do we want to talk a little bit about the master's and bachelor's programs?
What we have right now is a Master of Fine Arts track within the theater department in themed experience. So a Master of Fine Arts in the arts is a terminal degree. So it's the final degree. You can be, God forbid, you could be a professor if you went and did that. So when you look at a kind of a chart of ascending to different qualities of programs, at the pinnacle would be the research institution with a terminal degree, master's program fully accredited, and that's what we have. And that's the reason I came to UCF, was the excitement at the university level to start a program like this. The short version of it was I was talking to the dean, Jeff Moore, who was really a visionary about this, and I was talking to him about the work I did. He said, you have to do it here. You have to do this at UCF.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, eventually. He said, no, I want you here like in a month. And he was right, because we started working on it. We got all these things together, and we're just really moving full speed ahead, developing programs here. Yeah.
And I think
Kara?
you're seeing that same excitement on the student side, too. I mean, the minute this was announced, I think we barely did any marketing. There might have been a Facebook post
It was
or
a story, one story.
a story, and really Peter's inbox was full. So that just goes to show you how excited they were. And there is a need for this. I talked to a senior executive in this industry, and he said, man, if I had this opportunity back when I was in school, I would be so much further ahead, because there's a lot of learning on the job that's done. So we're trying to sort of mitigate that and let students graduate and hit the ground running if they haven't already started doing so.
Why don't you guys elaborate a little bit on the internship layer, because I think that's a big deal. One of the things that we're proud of is, we have an internship program here. And for those students who come here and actually have real experience and hours being in a studio, it's so enlightening, right? Yeah. It's different than just being in a lab independent of the industry. It's part of your curriculum to have that.
It's a crucial part of it, actually. Yeah. And it makes 100% sense right here in Orlando, because there's just so many internship opportunities. And I'm hoping a couple of spots in Falcon for some students that I have. Without getting into too many details, their last year of the program, it's a 3-year program, is mostly their thesis and internships. So they're off campus, they're working in the field, and this is where the innovation happens, to be honest with you. This is where the cutting edge is. I want them to learn from the best in the industry. That's was an important part of the advisory council, is we wanted people who were very successful, who were leaders in the industry. And as a third thing, we wanted people who were local right here in Orlando.
Were there other reasons that we want to touch upon for establishing this program at UCF? Kara?
And really at the macro level, if you look at UCF being either the top or very close to the top leading university at 68,000+ students.
We're up to 72 now, I heard.
Oh, there we go, God. 72.
You heard it here
it's
first.
UCF at ASU. We're one of also the most innovative. And so it really goes against the theory that you can't be big and excellent.
Right.
And UCF is all about not who it excludes, but who it includes. And so diversity and inclusion, while being big and then also being affordable too, because if you look at some of these other leading institutions that have programs like these that you could compare to, we are a very affordable difference there. And so if someone's making a choice and they want to be in the heart of the industry and they want to do it at an affordable rate, UCF is their answer.
With an industry like this that changes so fast and has to be so technologically savvy, how do you integrate that lightning fast level of change into a curriculum where you said it's a 3-year program, a student may start in the first year and in the third year, something could be completely different or have become completely obsolete?
You're really looking for a balance where you're saying, I want the student to have the skill sets necessary for that first job and to be successful entering the industry. Yeah. Because even if you do have a master's of fine arts in the field, they're not going to hire you as the supervisor. You're going to come in at that entry level. But then the second part, which is probably more pertinent, is you're trying to train them to have a creative mind and to think about that industry and know a good deal of the questions that they need to know and understand the objective that somebody like Cecil might be working on when he's working at a high level with a client. So you have the two things. It's the skill set, the technical skill set, and then the creativity and the knowledge that they're getting from a master's degree. And if you're doing that second part, that doesn't change. That's a standard.
That stays consistent.
That's constant.
For our students or prospective students who might be listening to this episode right now, could you talk a little bit about what is unique about the program that UCF has to offer?
In our title, we're unique. We're the only program that's called Themed Experience. The important thing is we wanted to be a little bit broader, and we wanted to attract the student who, yes, you might want to do theme park, and that's magnificent and wonderful. I love them, Yeah. But we're also inclusive of museums, aquariums, zoos. There's all these incredible things that are out there. So what we're saying, when we say experience, it could be entertaining, but it could be educational. It could be quite an emotional experience. There's a lot that's out there about that. So we're pulling in a lot of students who are saying, I love the theme parks, but I think I want to do something else and something that's unique.
Yeah.
So we give them that opportunity to explore a broader field. We also, because we are a terminal degree, a thesis is part of what we do. You get to produce your own piece. You spend the better part of a year on one project that is your concept and your idea. That time to work on something like that with the kind of guidance, you're not going to get that again for dozens of years in your career.
Right.
And that's really unique. There is not another program that has that.
Distinction, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you.
Great insight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
When we were renovating Spaceship Earth for Disney, Mike West was over there as kind of head of all the renovation of Spaceship Earth and Innovention. So with legends like Mike West and Bob Ward on the council, it was humbling for me to kind of look at the roster, if you will, and see these legendary names and companies. To be a participant in that was kind of refreshing.
Let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Mike West.
Hi, I'm Mike West. I'm a Senior Director Executive Producer with Universal Creative.
Great. Thanks so much for being here again.
My pleasure.
So I think we wanted to start by just hearing a little bit about your background and how you got into the industry.
I started out in 1980 as a communications writer for Walt Disney Imagineering, then WED Enterprises, doing all the nomenclature for the Italy, Japan, and Mexico pavilions at Epcot. So my parents thought, oh, he's a writer for Disney, and I was doing like bathrooms in Japan, It was kind of the way my career started. I spent the first 9 years in my life with WDI in California, and got into show writing and directing and eventually producing, and was part of the team that was working on the Disney MGM studios in the late 80s. And after we opened everything, I sent Marty Sklar a note and said, hey, here's an idea. What if I stayed in Florida and kind of restarted the WDI East Group again? So a gentleman which everybody's familiar with named George Head, and I kind of kicked that off again in 1989. I always kidded Marty because I said, you really agreed to that way too fast. He said, sure, go to Florida, get out of my hair.
Yeah.
So I moved to Florida, and George and I and a bunch of other people eventually built up what became known again as WDI Florida East. And ended up going over in the 2000s to Paris to work on the second gate at the studios. Worked on Adventures by Disney, launched that new business venture for the Disney company with a few other guys. In 2005, I ended up switching over, actually in 2006, to Universal Creative. It's a lot of fun. I've been very blessed. Very blessed. It's been a great career.
How did you and the UCF Council come to meet?
I actually met Peter Wescher through, again, George Head when George was up at SCAD.
Oh, SCAD, right.
Yeah, George gets around, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I had a few classes with him.
He's a SCAD grad. So.
Oh, that's right. He's a great guy. One of my favorites.
Absolutely.
At one of the SCAD events during IAPA, George had the team from SCAD down, so I got to meet Peter at that time, and he always kept in touch. And then when the advisory council was forming, he asked me to be a part of it.
We were talking a little bit right before we hit record about how this kind of thing has been so needed in the industry and so desired in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about what you are hoping from it and what has maybe surprised you the most or validated the idea the most since this got started?
For years, we've wondered where are we going to get the new young talent to come from. And it just seemed like such a natural for UCF to be leading that. And when the opportunity finally came up, I was just super excited about it because, it's a thriving business, but we need new young people. There's guys in my generation, what I kind of refer to as a second generation of Imagineers, who are at the age now where we're retiring or going into that infamous consulting part of our life. So we need those new young people. And I was so blessed to be part of a team at Imagineering that we worked with the original guys that created the industry, that worked directly with Walt.
That's
and
amazing.
They were so generous with their time, completely selfless, that you could come in and sit down and talk with Blaine Gibson and watch him sculpt for 2 hours, and he's just talking about what he does, and Rolly Crump and Wathel Rogers and all these amazing guys. Exitentia was one of my absolute mentors. And so I feel that I need to pay it forward to the other young people coming along to have the opportunity that I had. People at Universal, including Bob Ward, who's on the council with us, and Mark Woodbury, and the guys that I've had the pleasure of working with there, have continued, even at my age, to help train me and help me to learn new things. So I really feel it's incumbent upon me that I need to be able to pass that on, not because of any talent I have, but because of the talent they have that can come through me.
Absolutely. Cecil was saying that the conversations you've been having are so fascinating and interesting, and the unique perspective and value that you are bringing to the council. I'm very curious to know what those conversations are like and how this kind of pioneering this in a lot of ways, what that feels like.
I think if you're in a council session, you'd find just sheer joy.
Yeah.
And it's great to see the young people that have such enthusiasm. I mean, we feed off of them when we have the chance to meet some of these students. Yeah. And I think it's collective as the entire council to go, this is so great because now we can bring some new people in and that can infuse new life into our work and also teach us. I mean, you always have to be willing to learn from everybody when they come in. This is really a great opportunity for the school, for the community, because the community as an industry can get more involved with the school and vice versa and bring the whole thing together. And the ultimate thing we do is everything for the guest. In this case, the ultimate thing we can do as an advisory council is for the students.
Yeah. We talked a little bit with Peter and the greater UCF team about, their foundation. And what was really enlightening for me was how open-minded they were. There wasn't a predefined thing. When they really asked us to come on a board and counsel, they were really open-minded to hearing, how are you hiring people? What are you looking for? Those are the kind of things we want to sculpt. And so it was really enlightening to see the dynamics happen in the first meeting.
Absolutely.
It was so effective. It was like one of the best meetings that I've participated in where everyone was adding something fresh that I didn't have a preconceived idea of how people were going to respond to some of the questions. It was refreshing to see different things.
It made me stop and think, oh yeah, what do we need?
Yeah,
Because you get so used to the flow of your day and you just expect things and people to be there to do the work, and then you kind of stop and go, oh, wait, we really need some good show set people more, and we need some more of this. Somebody always, would say, well, I'm a finance person. I said, listen, if you can figure out a creative way to make sure this project stays on budget,
there's a role for you.
You're one of the most creative people on the team. Don't forget that. Don't ever forget that. Because without you, we don't move forward.
That's
very
right.
true. Yeah,
I like that.
But it really does. It makes you stop and think about where do we need to be going as an industry and what talents do we need to infuse into our projects? Because there's a whole new layer of things, obviously, that we have to think about how we're going to create to meet new demands from an audience that's significantly different than it was just 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
right.
How do we incorporate interactivity from cell phones and that sort of thing? Those are the things that young people can bring in and say, okay, dude, here's how you got to do it. Maybe they won't use the word dude because that's probably I sound like the Big Lebowski when I say that.
I love it.
Yeah.
But the fact that the students, they have different sensitivities on what to sculpt as far as what the product should be for their generation.
And what the expectations of their peers will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very curious to know how companies are hiring and what the companies are looking for, but the companies are also trying to figure out what the industry is going to be like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that is always changing, and therefore the companies are always changing, and therefore the students and the schools need to stay on top of that as well.
They're now invited to the ecosystem. What was nice about what Peter did in our last, I think, few meetings was actually invite some of the students to speak about their current experience.
That's
going
great.
Through the program. So that was nice to meet them.
Yeah, and we learn from them.
Yeah.
The more feedback we get from them, the more it helps us think about how can we better serve them and what tools can we help them develop to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Mike. We
You're
really,
very
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was great.
Cecil, I know you've talked a lot about the role that Bob Ward has had in your personal journey, and we have the good fortune of being able to speak with him in just a moment. I wanted to see if you had anything that you wanted to add about that.
It was so nice to be able to be asked to be part of the UCF Advisory Council, and I think there was a little bit of influence from my mentor, Bob Ward, on why I was even asked.
Yeah.
And then obviously being able to collaborate and sit down and ideate how best to set up this program to arm these students to become, effective in our industry, exposed at, different facets of our industry, I think has been a refreshing part of the conversation. So it's nice to be able to be at kind of that same level of being able to ideate.
Yeah,
Some of my
and towards that common
industry
cause.
heroes.
Yeah, with your industry heroes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Bob Ward. Hey, Bob, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Ward. I'm very fortunate to have been in the themed experience and entertainment destination business for nearly 50 years now.
Thank
That's
you
incredible.
so much. We would love to get some insight into your story and your journey of how you got to where you are now.
So being part of realizing Walt's dream of the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, and I was along with many of the other Disney Imagineers and executives watching guests flow off of the monorail and the boats into and through the train station at the entrance to the theme park.
Right.
And it was an amazing thing because you could watch them go through that tunnel and from above at the train station look down below and see them looking in total wonderment as though they had just walked right through the proscenium of a stage and were now part of the theater themselves. And they were in a place that was clearly the most wonderful place on earth. All their cares and challenges were left behind. They were there with family and friends, and it was likely the best day of their lives. And at that moment, I knew this was a business I needed to be in for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. I can envision it, with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
That moment, and being able to experience that must have been spectacular.
Well, and of course, back then we didn't have all today's technology, so it was even more of a powerful statement.
Mm-hmm.
True, yeah.
It wasn't encumbered with social media and looking at cell phones and doing all this other stuff.
Sure, yeah.
It was truly pure themed experience. People don't remember. Prior to Walt Disney World in Orlando on the east coast of the country, we really didn't have themed restaurants. We didn't have themed commercial developments. Theming woke up east of the Mississippi in the United States.
Yeah.
The Magic Kingdom planted that flag, and it was a few years afterward, but commercial developers started seeing how engaging that was with guests and knew immediately that that could enhance their own commercial businesses. And that's why the program of themed experience at UCF is so fabulous, because Peter Weishar is such a full spectrum leader. He's amazing. And this is not just about theme parks.
Retail and F&B and other things that we engage with every day have all been influenced by, these major milestones in our industry.
Right.
To have that level of storytelling and all of the different applications that come with it, it almost feels like we're still just on the cusp of really understanding what all that can be applied to.
Well, yes, and today the spectrum is even broader because of the
Exactly.
technology that we have today. And it's really amazing. I mean, I'm on sort of the back end of all that. I enjoy it. I use it to the degree I can. But for all of you who are in it and or about to enter it, there are no limitations, none whatsoever, other than those you put on yourself.
Well said.
So the next part of my journey was where I became the manager of graphics and signage for all of Magic Kingdoms. I very quickly observed that when I would be in meetings with the director of food or manager of retail, and we're talking signage, that it was always part of a broader meeting about operating conditions or queue lines or one thing or the other. And after my particular part was over, I would stay, and I suppose in educational lingo, I would say I audited the meeting. So it allowed me to observe how all these supervisors and managers interacted, and it was interesting how the food guys had a different perspective than the retail guys, and they all wanted the 200% exposure, and the operators about managing flow. And so it started to really enhance and broaden my understanding about this is not just about signage and graphics. This is a communication tool, and it has to speak to people so they understand it and provide the information you want them to have so that they'll have an even more enjoyable experience. So what I learned out of that is for everyone, wherever they are in their course of study, be open to everything around you, because you'll often become aware of something that you never thought of that will become an asset for you later on. And it's always good to know how others are thinking about the same thing you're thinking about. And if you give yourself the opportunity to explore that in an environment where you're being creative, everyone grows.
One thing that came out of conversations with Peter, Cara, Heather, and Mike was how the program is trying to appeal to different facets of degrees and focus.
The interdisciplinary nature and accessibility of a program like this and of an industry like this.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
I first met Peter Weishar at SCAD at a SATE conference in 2014. Obviously he created an amazing program there. And then I learned that all of a sudden Peter had become the dean of the College of Fine Arts at Florida State University. And it was in the state of Florida where themed entertainment is the big deal. And he reached out to me to create an advisory board, as he has here at UCF. And of course, I jumped at that chance. And we worked hard at writing everything we needed to do to submit to the legislature to get a funded program. But I could tell that we were pushing a ball uphill to a certain degree. And in the end, it didn't happen. And fortunately, discussions were had to where he's now at UCF. And UCF has the themed experience program as part of the Arts and Humanities College, which is perfect.
It's perfect.
Because it's full spectrum.
Yeah.
It's totally full spectrum. And it's perfect because it's at ground zero of themed experience.
Exactly. We talked a lot about how this is the epicenter.
It is the epicenter. And the entire executive side and administrative side of the university are totally on board and embracing of this. And it's also fair to acknowledge that UCF has come a long way in not that long a time.
Yes.
And they have many programs. Their School of Hospitality is amazing, and that blends in with the School of Arts and Humanities as well.
Yeah.
And it's like the perfect storm of enhancing your abilities in the arts and crafts of themed experience. There's also an undergraduate program they're working on, which I'm very excited about because the undergraduate areas where the benefit of the broader spectrum of arts and humanities can really be applied. By the time you complete that and move on into the graduate level, now you probably know who and what you are and what you would like to be doing, and you can use that graduate portion of this to fine-tune your skills, to target specific opportunities. So I'm very excited that they've got an undergraduate program beginning, and I think that will become the real fundamental game changer because it will provide a full spectrum kind of insights into the business.
Thank you so much, Bob, for this conversation. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Bob. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, guys, no, thank you.
We want to sincerely thank the UCF team, Peter, Kara, Heather, for first helping to bring this program to life, and also for coming in to speak with us about it. We had a great conversation with them and with their students who visited our studio right after. We also want to thank Mike and Bob for joining us. It was a profound honor to speak with them and hear their thoughts on the future of our industry's workforce. On behalf of our entire studio, it's a real privilege to be part of such an exciting conversation and development that will have such momentous implications for our industry in the future, and we can't wait to see what's next. To learn more about UCF and its themed experience program, visit ucf.edu. You can also read more about it and our involvement with the Advisory Council on our blog at falconscreativegroup.com. And as always, you can send us an email with any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes at podcast@falconscreativegroup.com. Again, that's podcast@falconscreativegroup.com. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next episode.
This has been Experience Imagination. For more information about this episode's discussion, be sure to visit our blog at falconscreativegroup.com. And don't forget to follow Falcons Creative Group on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.